This is Andy Purwell for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and I'm delighted to be joined by Sky Sports' Adam Smith now over Zoom. Adam, how are you doing?
I'm very good, thanks. We're just recovering from the drama of Saturday night and obviously the 4 weeks of fight camp, which have been amazing. Something completely different, something you never have thought would happen, and it's been a brilliant month. I think there's been some fantastic fights. It's looked spectacular. It's been a real innovation, I think, from Matchroom and Sky, and I hope people have enjoyed it. We certainly have. Now it's all down, and we look for the next project. But I'll be back to chatting to Eddie today about where we go from here. But obviously, more importantly, where does heavyweight boxing go from here as well? And it's the twists and turns and the unpredictability of our sport is why we're all gripped and why we love it so much. So it's just sort of reading all the reviews, all the opinions of people from the weekend, and it was quite a night, wasn't it?
It was indeed. It was certainly something I won't forget. Is a brilliant stoppage victory for Alexander Povetkin, just a stunning finish. Let's start from the top of that card and work our way down, Adam. Obviously, with Povetkin's knockout victory over Dillian Whyte, as I said, a stunning finish to the fight. But what did you make of it, and obviously the knockout in the end?
Yeah, look, I mean, the first couple of rounds were close. Matt thought Dillian sort of nicked them, and Povetkin was throwing his fair share of body shots, but I don't know, the general sort of body language I got was that, he was a bit sort of vacant end of the first round. He didn't go back to the right corner straight away. I thought, are we looking at a Povetkin from Saudi? I thought he lost against Michael Hunter. That's, that sort of had his day, and this was very much sort of last chance saloon. I thought Dillian, certainly the third and the fourth round, he was in total control. And at the end of the fourth round, when he'd got the two knockdowns, and you sort of looked at the Povetkin corner and you just wondered sort of what was left really, and what was left in his career. But, you just can't write off a heavyweight who can punch, a heavyweight who has power. So many of them can, and Povetkin, landed the Swedish shot of his long career. Who'd have thought it would take this long to land, the best shot of all? It was an incredible uppercut. It was, came from right down, almost on the floor, and straight up through the guard. Dillian didn't see it, obviously, and all his good work over what, the 1,000-odd days more that he's been waiting for the shot at the WBC belt, unfortunately comes crashing down. But that's boxing for you. He took the challenges, he took the risks. Should he have done that? Well, I think that's what Dillian Whyte's all about. He's a fighting man. He licked his wounds after the Joshua fight, and he'll do so again. He wants the rematch. He wanted it 20 minutes later after he was knocked out. I saw him backstage afterwards, and he was down, but he's a mentally strong individual, and I think that he'll relish the chance of going back in there with Povetkin. We all will, to see whether he can continue the good work he did up to the first few seconds of round number 5, or whether it will take a lot of demons to overcome, and whether there is damage there. And Lennox Lewis did it, didn't he? Got up off the 2 devastating defeats to Oliver McCall and Hasim Rahman, and became the best heavyweight we've ever produced. So it's a blip. It's a big blip for Dillian. It's not a disaster. It's obviously it's a crushing blow, but it's something that he can rectify. He's trained long and hard in Portugal, and there'll be a lot of questions answered. Should Mark Tibbs have been there? What about the corner? Was he cruising a bit too much? Did he take his eye off it? Or is he susceptible to uppercuts? There's all sorts of things that are going to be said. I think what we know is that any heavyweight on any given night can do that. And we've seen Tyson Fury knocked almost cold by Deontay Wilder. Somehow he got up from that. If he hadn't got up from that, you'd have said, well, he lost once. Deontay Wilder's lost by knockout. Anthony Joshua's lost by knockout. Alexander Povetkin lost by knockout to Anthony Joshua. So, there is a bit of a merry-go-round here. There is a lot of twists and turns, and there's a huge amount of fights that can be made. And, Bob Arum crowing about, you should have, concentrate on the mandatory shot, and then London bridges are falling down and all this. I mean, it's nonsense, isn't it? Ultimately, Kubrat Pulev's got the chance against Anthony Joshua. Of course he does. He's a big, strong heavyweight. So, Deontay Wilder could come back and knock out Tyson Fury. It's probably unlikely, but, you just don't know. And I think that's the unpredictability and the fascination of heavyweight boxing. And that's why certainly the casual fans get so into it, because you just never know. And for me, it was one of the biggest stunners we've seen in recent times. You know, Joshua Ruiz in the Garden, probably more because, you know, Ruiz was such an outsider. You never thought that was coming. And I think Povetkin had much more chance going into the fight against Dillian Whyte because of his proven track record. But I think the way the fight was going, certainly in that third and fourth round, you know, it just was the pattern of the fight was just one of the biggest shocks you'll see.
Just because of kind of the way the fight was going into that fifth round, was you surprised by the fact that Povetkin was able to find that shot, or is it simply a matter of Povetkin still obviously a world level fighter at heavyweight and you can't actually ever just write him off?
Both of them had had their success with body shots, you know, during the fight up to them. I just thought Dillian was just the boss. He was the one in charge. And yeah, you know, look, you just, was it Russian roulette? Was it last throw of the dice? What was it? Or as he said afterwards, was he actually not that hurt from the knockdowns? And, you know, look, he'd obviously practiced that a lot in training. He'd obviously saw that as a possible opening, a possible weakness for Whyte. So you've got to take your hat off to Alexander Povetkin. It was a fantastic shot. You know, was it a shot with his eyes shut like Oliver McCall knocked out Lennox Lewis? Was it one with Hassy Rackman when Lewis had been messing around on the set of Ocean's 11 and got to South Africa late? You know, that there was the chance of upsets. Always is in boxing like that. But this one, you've got to give credit to Alexander Povetkin because he found the right shot at the right time. And to be honest, yeah, I thought Dillian would have won fifth, sixth, seventh round stoppage, and I think most people probably would agree. I think it was, it was a possible desperation from Povetkin, but it was desperation, but beautifully timed and a wonderful shot that they had been working on. So you have to say, well done, Alexander Povetkin. At 40, 41, he's next week. I mean, it's incredible, really, isn't it? That he's kept chugging along. He's kept in there. He's beaten Price and Fury. I thought he lost to Hunter, but this is boxing. You know, different styles make different fights, and he saw a weakness. And as AJ said, maybe Dillian should have jumped on him when he had him hurt. But I think it was a sort of clever performance from Dillian Whyte. Behind the jab, I thought his body shots were good. Thought he looked really good. It's just one of those things, and you've got to give credit to Alexander Povetkin. He came out with a massive victory, and he revs his career up again. And but it's not the end of Dillian Whyte, of course not. And there'll be those out there, the naysayers. I saw what Andy Ruiz put, and look, Dillian is his own guy, and he says what he believes all the time. And some people have not like that over the years, but I think more and more people have liked the fact that he's taken on all comers and he's no nonsense sort of guy. And I think people have become very fond of Dillian Whyte. So there's a lot of people pretty gutted on Saturday night that it could happen. But ultimately, as Anthony Joshua proved, you dust yourself down, you go back to the gym, you come again. And look what he did against Ruiz. And Tyson Fury, most people probably thought he might get knocked out again by Deontay Wilder after the knockdown in the first fight. But, he went back, he changed trainers, he went to a different setup, he got himself in phenomenal condition, he worked on a game plan, he said he was going to stop Deontay in the rematch, and he did. So, this is now a chance for Dillian Whyte to prove his minerals, to prove that he is world class, which we believe he is. Is he good enough to win a world title? Has he missed that opportunity? I don't think so. There's chance, but it's going to be a tough one with Alexander Povetkin going in with all the mental demons flying around and knowing that could happen again. Was it a blip? Was it just one shot? He was unlucky, or is this Povetkin who'll stop him again? The rematch is going to be fantastic at the end of the year, isn't it?
Just to touch on that rematch, Adam, I remember when AJ lost to Ruiz in New York, a lot of people were suggesting maybe it would be better for AJ to go away, have one fight, and then go into the Ruiz rematch. Obviously, that didn't come to fruition, and AJ went straight in for it. But with Dillian on the back of such a heavy knockout as well, is it the right thing to go straight back in for a rematch, or do you think maybe have one fight in the interim and then go in for it?
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? That's what AJ did. Everyone said, "Oh, should he have a warm-up fight back?" Me included. That was a devastating defeat in New York. But when you get that rematch, sometimes you've got to strike while the iron's hot, or certainly when the business side is, because, you know, he was desperate to, you know, to right the wrong, reclaim his titles. And, you know, he spent a long time in the gym preparing for that, meticulously, and working out a strategy to beat Andy Ruiz. And then you still get critics who say, you know, it was boring, you know, he was a bit gun shy in there, and, you know, why didn't he knock him out? Well, I mean, this is their careers you're talking about. This is a business, you know. AJ went in there and put a pretty punch-perfect performance on, you know, to school Andy Ruiz, and that's what he needed to do. And Dillian's going to have to go back to the drawing board. And, you know, it's difficult, because he prepared for Alexander Povetkin this time. He'd watched the best Alexander Povetkin tapes, and, you know, he got it wrong. He said to me afterwards, he said, 100, 200 times in sparring, I blocked that shot. You know, it was my mistake. And if it's his mistake and he could rectify that, then there's no reason why he couldn't possibly go on and win the rematch. Is it the right move? It's a good question. It's the move we want to see. I don't know, probably for Dillian. For these guys, you know, they're at that level now where, you know, they might as well just go for the risk. They might as well roll the dice, because ultimately, if he goes and beats, you know, an average heavyweight, and maybe just to get some confidence back, it's like, you know, you're at that stage now. You're about to fight for a world title, and if you think you're good enough, then you've got to be beating Povetkin in a rematch. It's fine. If he loses again, then, you know, maybe that's just sort of a leveler, and, you know, we know that Dillian may never become a world champion, but you're only one shot away, or one punch away in this heavyweight division from getting a sort of new lease of life, or a new opportunity. You know, there are so many around, and although it's been very difficult for Dillian to actually get that world title shot, you know, through the politics, through taking other fights, through you know, very, very different, you know, situations. You know, he's all about entertaining as well, Dillian. He wants to fight the best, and I think if he wants to test himself, and if he can't beat them, he can't beat them. So I don't have a problem with, you know, 2-3 defeats on a record. You know, if you're looking back at Evander Holyfield, at Mike Tyson, at Lennox Lewis, at Riddick Bowe, you know, these great heavyweights are in terrific fights. You know, Bowe Holyfield, you know, he won one. Holyfield then came back in the rematch. The third one, they were both down. That's what we want to see. We want to see drama. And I think Dillian Whyte won't be remembered. If he never wins a world title, he won't be remembered to being the greatest fighter. He's never said that. He'd be remembered for being in great fights and always testing himself and giving value for money, which again he did on Saturday night. Unfortunately, you know, it backfired for him in dramatic fashion, you know, visually and maybe mentally. But I think he'll come back stronger, and he wants the rematch, and I think it's about him. So yeah, look, you know, Lennox Lewis spent 2.5 years trying to get Oliver McCall back in the ring. He had loads of fights in the meantime, and maybe he needed that before he got in. And then McCall had the breakdown in the ring. With Rackman, it was immediate. So you just don't know. It depends, I think, on the mentality, on the manner of defeat. I think, you know, Lewis knew against Hasim Rackman that he'd messed up in not being prepared well enough, and he was so prepared for the rematch. And look what happened. He knocked out Rackman, and that was the end of him. So, you know, Dillian will probably just think, it's one mistake I made. I was in control of the fight. As long as I don't make that mistake again, I'll get the job done, and I'll beat Povetkin in the rematch. So, you know, we say as fight fans, bring it on.
One final thing on Dillian before we quickly work through the rest of the card, Adam. Obviously, you mentioned comments from Bob Arum, and we've seen Andy Ruiz's video. What have been your thoughts on kind of a reaction from people who are involved in the sport, in particular Bob and Andy Ruiz's comments?
You know, look, I'm a broadcaster. You know, I respect all fighters that get in the ring. I'm not one that's going to be, you know, criticising. You know, wouldn't have said if Alexander Povetkin had knocked out, wouldn't have said, oh, there we go, poor, you know, 40-year-old Russian rubbish. All that. You just don't do that. I don't think. You know, Bob Arum's got, you know, obviously his agendas. You know, he looks after Tyson Fury, he looks after Kubrat Pulev, and you know, he's stuck the knife in. That's up to him. You know, Andy Ruiz, he's got beef with Dillian Whyte. They were meant to fight. That was a possible opponent for this year, and you know, that didn't happen. So look, you know, Andy got schooled out in Saudi Arabia. He came in way too heavy, and you know, look, I'm not in that game for, you know, I think you should respect everyone that gets in the ring, certainly at that level. You know, it's up to us to call a fight. You know, I don't think we should be going onto Twitter and all that sort of stuff, and you know, sort of shouting out about things. That's a promoter, and I don't know. Would Eddie Hearn have said that if I don't know. I didn't think it was. Bob Arum's one of the greatest promoters the world's ever seen. I like him personally. I like Todd DeBurf. I like Top Rank, the whole organisation. But I don't know. I didn't think it was that classy. And look, it's obvious that they're promoters and they're trying to push their guys, whatever. But I think Dillian Whyte's provided a lot for the sport over the last 2, 3, 4 years. And I think it's tough to be kicked when you're down, but that's what happens. And there will be people that say, well, Whyte said maximum violence and he'll bring everything, and he said things in the past, and he's wanted Wilder and he can't get past Povetkin. But each fight's different, and I just think you've got to respect that. I don't think it's right to be kicking someone when they're down, but each into their own.
Just to work through the rest of card, Adam, from Saturday night, then Taylor pursued to again delivering another great fight. What was your thoughts on their clash?
Yeah, great fight. They've had 20 rounds now, haven't they? And they've been absolutely fantastic. I didn't think it was quite as brilliant as the fight in the Garden, and maybe because they had the crowd there and everyone was on their feet at the end, and they delivered that 10th round, which was one of the great rounds in modern boxing history. And it was, possibly the best fight of last year. It was so good. I thought Katie was lucky in the Garden. I thought Pursoon probably deserved it there, but it was close, and it was close again on Saturday night. We're 10 meters back from ringside, so it's difficult at times commentating off a monitor. We're not on the ring apron. No doubt Katie landed the classier shots, the better punches, but Delphine Pursoon landed a whole lot as well, and she was aggressive certainly from that 3rd, 4th round onwards. And Taylor had that great start. I thought it was a close fight. Andy Clark scored it to Pursoon by a couple. I know Spencer Oliver and Johnny Nelson and most people that I spoke to afterwards thought Pursoon deserved it. Matt had it a draw. And then Eddie had Katie winning quite comfortably, as did Victor Lachlan by 5 points. I didn't see that. I thought it was tight. I would have accepted 96-94 either way. As I said, I think Katie was much better this time and classier with her bursts. But there was a lot of aggression and energy from Pursoon. She didn't feel badly done by at the end, and I think that was pretty telling. The fact that she was hands up. Last time she was in tears. This time she was very happy to get that opportunity and do it all again. She was very praiseworthy of Katie afterwards. So in her eyes, Katie deserved it. Katie's team certainly thought they won it, fairly comfortably. And I'm pleased that Katie now can get sort of Delphine Pursoon off her back and move on to other fights. She's 16-0. She's a fantastic fighter. She's an icon for Irish sport. She's wonderful. But it was a close fight, and I can see people thinking Katie deserved it by a couple, 2 or 3. I can see people thinking Delphine Pursoon could have got it on work rate aggression. These 2-minute rounds are tough to score. I've got to say, and it is subjective. So I don't know what you felt, Andy, but it was a pretty mixed one to me. It was a great fight, though.
Certainly was. Just moving on once again, Clay Congo, again, another very good matchup up until the point of a stoppage for Chris. What did you make of their bout, and how was you seeing it progressing as the rounds were going on? Because it seemed to be at times maybe Chris was tiring him and he had like a burst of energy to come forwards. How was you seeing it?
Really good matchup, wasn't it? You wonder whether Clay would just have that extra seasoning in the professional ring, which looked at sort of the middle rounds that he was starting just to get into a rhythm. And you just wondered whether Congo hadn't gone beyond 6, whether that would start to become a problem. But then Congo heard him, I think it was in the 5th, and he didn't sort of follow up. And I just wondered if that was the opportunity. But maybe he was just pacing himself. Jimmy Mack in the corner, wonderful trainer, and obviously always in great condition himself, isn't he? So I think actually he paces his fighters pretty well, and I think he was just probably saving a bit, Congo, and and ultimately he got the knockout. I thought it was a terrific performance from Chris Congo. Luther Clay again played his part, like they all did on Saturday night. Everyone that lost, they played their, or even drew, played their part in it. But yeah, for me it was a great night for Chris Congo, and he's promised so much, and we've heard so much about him, and he was such a great amateur, but he's never had that one fight on a professional stage. I think he needed it, and I think Luther Clay brought the best out in him. And Clay can come again, no disgrace or anything wrong, but Congo got it right, and he said he would, and well played to him.
You mentioned draw there, obviously Chelly Cullin ending with a draw. Certainly over social media, most people, from what I saw, seem to be scoring in favour of Zach Chelly. Controversial on the back of that. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought Zach Chelly won the fight. I thought he boxed really well. I thought Jack Cullin provided a bit like with Luther Clay, provided a real competitive 10-rounder. I thought he tried everything. At the time, his jab. He's almost like trying everything right, the right tactics. But he got caught quite a lot, and I thought Chelly's movement was good. I thought his fast combinations were good. I thought it was a bit of a coming out party for Zach Chelly, to be honest. Again, another one that's sort of just been, a lot of star quality at the beginning. Everyone thought he was going to be great. George Groves, James DeGale, all those guys who sparred with him, they thought he's plenty of talent. I've heard a lot of good things about Zach Chelly. I was really looking forward to seeing him. We know about Jack Cullin and what he can give, but I thought he was great on the night. I thought he won the fight. One of the judges went against him, thought Cullin won, and judging is subjective, and look, they've got a job to do, and we do our job. We call the fight the way we see it. As I said, it is harder 10 meters back for fight camp. It was. We're looking forward to getting back onto that ring apron, because I think when you're on that ring apron, you can really see the quality and see the ebbs and flows a little clearer. Calling off a monitor and quite a way back with perspex in front of you is not as easy. But at the same time, the three judges are there they're right ringside. They're very experienced. They're very good judges, and sometimes you're going to disagree. And I think there'll be a lot of comments on a lot of these fights. There'll be people that thought Zach Chelly should have deserved it. There'll be people that thought Katie Taylor won clearer. There'll be people that thought Delphine Bassoon, should have been tougher in that interview afterwards. And, a lot of people thought she won sort of 96-94, or it was close. A lot of people had Povetkin winning the first couple of rounds against Dillian. Some people had Dillian. Some people had it very close. I think that the key factor with all of this is that Zach Chelly proved himself. Never mind that he didn't get the win. He proved himself and he came out, and that was fantastic to see. Then you had Alan Babich coming in, and he's great value, isn't he? How far he'll go into the higher echelons of the division, who knows? But he's going to be a great journey while it lasts. It's very exciting. And then you had a great fight with Chris Congo, and I think maybe some people would have maybe had it close, or I thought Congo was in fairly good control of it. And then, then the Katie Taylor Delphine Bassoon fight, it's going to be subjective. These quick rounds to score. I thought Tasha Jonas nicked it against Terry Harper. Some people didn't agree with that. And I think you're always going to get that subjectivity. The classier work, no doubt, with Katie, but Delphine Bassoon with all the aggression, and there was plenty of shots she landed as well. And you saw the bump on Katie's eye, but the face of Delphine was marked up, and Katie certainly fought a more sensible fight this time. I thought the first 2 or 3 rounds she was absolutely brilliant, but did get dragged in again. It was just a great fight. So Katie gets the decision. Good, she moves on, fantastic. And then in the final fight, whatever you saw in the first sort of 3 or 4 minutes of the fight, Dillian Whyte was definitely in control. By the end of that 4th round, there's no question there. So that makes it so dramatic, and that bolt from the blue, and that's why we are stunned, why we are lost for words, why we are shocked, why we are now looking for the next fix, the next sort of heavyweight drama. It's brilliant, isn't it? And that's why we love it. So lots of debate, lots of subjectivity, bit of controversy. It's what it's all about. It's what the weather was like on Saturday night as well. You had a bit of rain, you had a rainbow at some point, a bit of sun, a bit of wind. It was just all happening. All the elements were there. And that fight camp in the Garden just provided something, didn't it, over 4 weeks? The egg and the cheese, the Jonas Harper, the Ball Courtney fight, Felix Cash, so many Conway and Mansouri, so many good fights. Zelfa Barrett's cracker with Eric Donovan, it was fantastic. And then I think we saved the best to last. You got, value for money all the way down the card. It was a spectacular with the fireworks and everything, and lots of talking points. And that's what we love. We love debate. We love the fans' interaction. We love people saying what they think and whether they agree or disagree with Matt, with Andy Clark, with us. That's what it's all about. But, we never say we're right. We just call it as we see it, and the judges do their job. And do they think they're right? Maybe they'll look back at it and think, oh, I got that a little wrong, or I was spot on there. But it's all about education. It's all about subjectivity, and there's experienced people around. But ultimately, you sometimes get strange decisions and sometimes get strange knockouts. And we certainly got a bit of that on Saturday night.
Just 2 more from me, Adam, before I do let you go. Just on the Savage, again, another terrific stoppage victory for himself. After the fight, he called out Filip Hrgović a fellow Croatian, and then we saw a lot of people on social media saying they'd like to see him in with Dave Allen. Either of those fights too that you'd be interested in?
Hrgovic, Allen, Bacoli, loads of them. I like to see the Savage in with, a huge amount of fighters. I mean, he wants to fight tomorrow, today, doesn't he? He was saying that he spars every single day with Dillian. He doesn't do any natural other conditioning in the gym. He just wants to fight. I mean, he's a breath of fresh air, isn't he? He's a part-time bouncer. He's got this alter ego in the Savage. He sees his Allen at home. You didn't want to bump into him in the corridors around fight camp in the bubble. I mean, look, but he's engaging, isn't he? And look, it's funny, actually. You sometimes get these characters. I'm not comparing him in any way to Butterbean, because Butterbean was a big lump, and very different. But he went and did his own thing, didn't he? Sort of king of the 3-rounders, just sort of smashing everybody up and, kept winning. So, and he was a bit of a sort of freak attraction, but it worked, didn't it? And you'd have Alan Babbage winning prize fighter every day of the week, wouldn't you? But, how far he'll go in this world, you don't know. I mean, he could punch, he can fight, he's got a huge heart, he's got attitude. Is he big enough? Is he technically good enough? We have to wait and see. I'd love him in with Allen. I'd love him in with Hrgovic. I mean, he wants all these fights. He said, line them up, And if you put him in with a Joshua, Fury, a Wilder, and would he get stopped? I mean, would he have found his level? At the moment, you'd have to say yes, but who knows if he can notch up, 10, 12, 15 knockouts and put the frighteners up, some of the heavyweights, and we'll have to wait and see if he's got anything more than what he's shown so far, which is aggression, no nonsense, in your face, power, excitement. I mean, look, you want to watch him, don't you?
Yeah, 100%. Final thing, Adam, obviously just reflecting on Fight Camp now, it certainly seems to be that it's probably been received better than what I think anybody could have imagined at the beginning. Just boxing's return, nobody knows how or what to expect. What's your overall reflections on it now that it's over, and where does boxing go from here?
Well, we're not a team at Sky to pat ourselves on the back. We do what we can to provide the best entertainment, the best television experience that we can possibly do. There's a huge amount of hard work that goes in behind the scenes. The team yourself, Andy. There's so much passion and dedication in there. And we're not ones to say, we got everything right. We don't. We're ones to learn from mistakes, and we're ones to, to hopefully deliver that. And I think that's what Fight Camp has done. I think it was a great idea, whether it was Eddie's or Frank's or a combination. But, we sat there a few months ago, Eddie and I, and we looked out into the garden and we thought, could we do something like this? And it's taken a huge amount of work from so many dedicated, operational, technical, savvy people to get this across the line. And I think it's been a pleasure to work with. I mean, we worked with Matchroom for so many years, and they're a great organisation, but we've worked so closely with them on this. The fight bubble was just fantastically organised. It was so efficient. It was so smooth. And, they're professional. They're just a fantastic team. And I think the Matchroom and Sky teams combining has given us this great month, but as spectacular as it looked, and as different, and as fun and what an experience it was, it was missing crowds, no question. Yes, we tried everything we could to listen to what fans wanted and give them the best sound we could, and that natural, punches in the corners and all that sort of stuff, which made it really authentic, I think. But, we missed the crowds. It wasn't the same. If there had been 10,000 people cheering Tasha and Terry Harper on, or the Katie Taylor fight, or, I think what we do is that we have done is that we've got the fights right. It's the most important thing. I said to Eddie, look, we've got to make sure that these fights are very close at whatever level. And, came the mantra, no easy fights, and that was apparent. And there were upsets, and there were just great matches. And I think what the fighters did, they've showed and proved they've come out of lockdown with such a great mental and physical attitude. They want to get back to work. They've come in, they've been fully focused. They haven't actually had to worry about the ticket selling, the moving around on fight week from venue to venue. They've been kept inside in a bubble, and of course that brings its difficulties. It's bumping into your opponents, claustrophobic and all that, but ultimately they've been very focused, and I think that's really come out in all the fights for all the weeks. I think there's been some tremendous performances, there've been some great stories, and I gauge it on, we get really close to it, Andy, and we want to improve for the next one, go again, will Fight come back next year. I said to Eddie, last week, I said, look, he says, do you think we should go on with it, keep the structure up? I said, look, and we both agreed that let's leave the party at its highest, let's leave it, at the top. And we did. And I think it was a fitting finale. And I think it'd be remembered as a great sort of, not just experiment, but a great production. And it was, bound together by some really hard work from Matchroom, from Sky, from others that really helped combine. But really, it's hats off to all the fighters who have taken risks. They've taken tougher fights straight after lockdown. No easy way back. They've gone in there. They've been so focused, so blinkered vision on, actually, their careers and doing the best. And every single one of them deserves so much respect. Even the ones that lost, the Shannon Courtneys, the Dillian Whytes, the poor Eric Donovan, he'd done so well for sort of 6 rounds of that fight. They can all come again. I think even in defeat, they've almost, Shannon Courtney's, almost like grown from that. And I'm sure Dillian will come back even stronger from his loss. And, that's what happens. And, Eric Donovan, you'll see him on a show again. And these guys and girls have been fantastic. Tasha Jonas, what a story she was. So I think there's been fantastic stories. Eggington will come again, Cheeseman, that first week was terrific, wasn't it? Gavin Gwyn's, toughness, Tennyson coming through. You forget all the great fights there were. And it was a brilliant month. And I think we now just pause for a bit, so we reflect on that, we let it settle, and we build up and we go again, and we come back in September, October, November. We know we've got big fights ahead of us. We've got a big rematch with Whyte and Povetkin. We've got AJ to get our teeth into again, Usyk Chisora hopefully, and so much more. The likes of Josh Warrington, Callum Smith, Kell Brook. Where are they going to appear? Joshua Boazzi, we want to see back really soon, and hopefully in September. And the women's game, it's not even the women anymore, it's just boxing now, isn't it? I mean, there's just been cracking fight after cracking fight, and we can't wait. And hope Chantel Cameron gets her chance, Savannah Marshall gets hers, and the sport is rocking, and that's fantastic. And when you see, albeit a defeat for a British fighter, and a dramatic one, but you see it sort of back page news again. The casual fans loved Fight Camp, didn't they? And I think that says it all. Frank's been doing a great job on BT to get boxing back regularly. He came back first, and we saw Frampton and Conlon come out the other night, and we want to see Dubois and Joyce and Anthony Yard, and there's so much to look forward to with boxing in general. I think the big fights, Andy, are going to be tough to make, the really big fights still without a gate. So we're going to have to sort of just work towards that, and maybe by October, November, December, we're going to have a pretty great, intense period leading up to Christmas with some huge fights, because if the crowds are back, hopefully, and the finances have been worked out, we'll get some real mega fights. But I think, and I hope you agree, that Fight Camp has been an unprecedented success, and it's been something completely different, something completely unique. And I think Eddie will look back at it and think that's one of his greatest achievements, but none of it's possible without the hard work of huge amount of people behind the teams. And most importantly, Andy, and I always say this, it's the fighters. Without the fighters, we're nothing. I've got so much respect for them, and that's why it sort of irks me a bit when you see those sort of negative tweets about, fighters that are on the floor, because they put their lives on the line each and every time in the ring, and every one of them has got my respect, and it's whatever level they are at, and we're nothing. Broadcasters, you doing your job, judges doing theirs, fans watching, we're nothing without the fighters themselves. They're the ones that get in the squared circle and put on the entertainment, and their careers are on their line. As we saw, Dillian Whyte waited over 1,000 days for his world title shot, and it's like that. It's rebuilding time, and it's gone, and it's cruel. It's a real cruel, brutal business, and they're very, very tough individuals. And my hats and my respect to every one of them. And you know what? They'll all come back, and the ones that come back stronger from adversity, from defeat, the ones that will continue and become, the great fighters. Muhammad Ali, Lennox Lewis, these great heavyweights. They tasted defeat, they lost, they came back. It's about how you deal with it. So, Shannon Courtney was in absolute bits after a loss to Rachel Ball. Some people thought Shannon won. Some people thought another close fight. Doesn't matter. I said to Shannon, look, it was a great fight. We'll do it again. We'll do something else. It's, Jim Watt always used to teach me this, Andy. You know, these everyone's trying to protect these zeros. You know, defeats don't matter. Johnny Nelson lost 12 fights. He lost a huge amount of fights. He lost his first 3 professional fights. 7.5 years he was a world champion at the end. It's all about the journey. And the journey with Dillian Whyte has taken a hit, but it just takes a turn. And he comes back. And let's see where we go with Tyson and with AJ and with all of that. But, you know, they all have my respect. And I thought Anthony was very classy as well. He could have stuck the knife into Dillian, but, you know, he's been there. You know, Tyson Fury was almost there, but he hasn't. You know, he stayed unbeaten. But they know. They all respect each other, these fighters. And that's what we should do, Andy, as well. It's been a terrific month. We all need a bit of R&R now, and we go again.
Adam, we'll leave it there, and I will leave you now to enjoy some time away from fight camp and to work towards what next projects you have lined up. It's been a pleasure to catch up with you, and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you for speaking to Boxing Social.
Cheers, Andy. Always a pleasure. Take care, mate.